Welcome back to Business Beyond Usual. My name is Aishwarya and we are recording live from the Ross School of Business.
And I'm Oghoghosa Igbineweka. We are excited to kick off season 10 with one of the most unique aspects of the Michigan Ross MBA, the international experiences.
At Ross, going global is more than just a chance to travel. It's about immersing yourself in new cultures, tackling business challenges from a global perspective, and building lifelong connections around the world.
Today, we'll be talking with some of our classmates who participated in MAP projects abroad, international exchange programs, and student-led global treks. We'll hear about what motivated them, what surprised them, and how these experiences shaped their MBA journeys.
But before we get started, we want to remind you that we love hearing from our listeners. Send us a message at bbupodcast@umich.edu. Follow us on Instagram at Ross_BBU, or DM us with questions, episode ideas, or just say hi.
All right, so we're going to go around the room here and do a quick round of guest introductions. I'll have them state their name, what are the international experiences they participated, whether it's MAP, exchange treks, or study abroad, and tell us a little bit about the next place you're hoping to travel to. So we'll kick it off with Diane.
Hi, my name is Diane. My background pre-Ross is the food and beverage industry. I'm from Canada. My international experiences during Ross so far was a short-term exchange in Stockholm. It was about 2 weeks long in May after my first year. And the next place I'm hoping to travel to is Vietnam.
Hi, my name is Janel Weatherly. Prior to coming to Ross, I worked in biotech space in project management. While at Ross, I participated in an international M-Trek where I went to Brazil like the week after orientation. And I will be going to a study abroad in Argentina over winter A. So I'm excited for that. And then the next place that I'm hoping to travel to, in addition to Argentina, just for fun, would be Thailand.
Hi, I'm Abha. Before Ross, I was in India. I was a management consultant. For my international experience, I went to Nairobi, Kenya for MAP as an MBA consultant. And the next place I'm hoping to travel to should be Japan, hopefully soon.
Hi, I'm Dominique Gill. Before Ross, I worked in commercial insurance and diversity, equity, and inclusion. For international experiences here at Ross, I've done 2 M-Treks to Brazil and Peru, MAP in Kenya and Tanzania, and exchange in China. And I look forward to sharing those experiences with everyone. The next place I think I'm really interested in going is probably India or Japan.
Hello, my name is Breezy. Before Ross, I was over at the law school, finishing up this semester there. I have also, like Dominique, done a few international experiences. For M-Trek, I went to Portugal. For MAP, I went to Ireland. I did a study abroad last summer to Germany, and I am hoping to do a spring break study abroad this year to Paris. The next place I'm hoping to travel to I'm actually planning on doing a trip around the world, visiting as many continents as possible after I finish my bar exam.
All right, so before we jump into our conversation, I want to make sure that we define some of these programs that we're going to discuss today. We are lucky to have Janel, who is our current president of the M-Trek Club. She'll talk about what is M-Trek.
Yeah, so M-Trek is about a week-long excursion that takes place basically the day that orientation completes. So in between orientation ending and the first day of classes, you, as a first-year student, rank places of your interest based off of the destinations that year. So this past year, we had Peru, we had Turkey, Mystery Trek. Mystery Trek is a long Ross tradition that happens every year where you don't know where you're going. So you sign up saying, yes, I'll go to Mystery Trek. You don't find out where you're going until you get to the airport. So that's always a fun surprise. This year they went to Belize. Last year they went to Serbia and Montenegro, I'm pretty sure. This year we also had Croatia. So there's, a plethora of places, domestic and international, that offers a great opportunity for you to, meet new students because these are people that you haven't met yet, most likely even during orientation. And you form these insane bonds with your classmates through different excursions that you'll have. So whether you're hiking or going to the beach, or like some people went hot air ballooning, some went skydiving. So you have all these really unique experiences that happen early on in your MBA journey, which really sets you off for a great start for your first year. Like I met some of my best friends from my Amtrak. Yeah.
Yeah, totally can resonate with her. I met my first bunch of friends at my Hawaii Amtrak. Yeah. And you just mentioned like we did different activities. I was just wondering to myself, like probably I was just 3 weeks into the US at that point of time, went to Hawaii, and I was jumping off a plane doing skydiving. I was like, what am I doing?
Like that's why Amtrak is so great, because you like, when else would you do those same things?
Yeah.
Like Dominique was on my Amtrak and we went to the Amazon in Brazil. Like when other time would I have the time to do it, and also would, push myself to do something as daring as that, and you jumping out of a plane. So,
yeah. No, it was amazing. Like one of my best experiences at Ross, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about another program we're going to spend some time talking about, which is MAP. And I'll have Aishwarya talk about that.
So MAP is a multidisciplinary action project, which all of the first year students do in their winter B. So that's the only course that we take in that specific term. And it's a mandatory course. And what it includes is 4 to 5 MBA1 students essentially are tied onto a specific project. And we work on a real world problem statement with a real client. So gives us the exposure of working with a real client and a hands-on experience of working on a project before we dive into our internship experience. So it's a great segue as we prepare ourselves for our internships, and the projects are very wide ranged and the clients are also wide range. So people travel across the globe for the projects. And that's where, this episode, we're going to hear about everyone's experiences on.
So, Breezy, let's start with the why. What made you decide to pursue, sounds like, many international experiences during your MBA?
So it started with a podcast session I heard from the author Neil Shusterman. He is my favorite author, and he often talks about how when he's writing a book, he likes to travel to new places, and that's how he gets out the story, seeing new cultures, talking with new people. And since I am currently working on finishing up my novel, I felt like it was a great time for me to use the time that I had here at the business school to finish that and try out his process.
That's great. Dominique, do you want to share your why?
Yeah, so I've always looked on TV growing up and just imagined going to all these beautiful places. But bringing it back to business school, I knew that I wanted to be a global leader. And as someone who aspires to work in HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion, I knew that I wanted to be compassionate about the people that I'm working with, learn the styles of how they do business. And then also glean on my classmates who are from very diverse backgrounds in multiple countries and have a more organic experience as well. So I just wanted to bring that all together so I can be a more empathetic leader when I'm in that position.
All right. Abha, do you want to share your why?
Sure. So for me, because I went for MAP, the project in itself was so interesting. It was a microfinance health tech startup. And given it was in Africa, it was a really fast evolving space. And I definitely thought I can add value. Healthcare is something that I had done in the past. I wanted to bring my experience, but also there was so much more to learn because this was a completely new place for me. So it was a wonderful experience, wonderful 8 weeks for me.
Yeah. You said you went to Kenya, right?
Yeah.
Interesting because I went for my MAP to Kenya as well. I was in Nairobi for 1 week and I did a very similar healthcare project and it was amazing. The Nairobi that I'd expected versus living there for a week was so different, so lively and amazing.
Yeah.
So when you got there, what really surprised you the most? When you visited these different countries, what do you think you were surprised the most? Maybe Janel, we get started with you.
Yeah, just drawing from my experience going to Brazil for Amtrak, I think I knew that the Brazilian culture was so lively just from my upbringing. I'm Jamaican by heritage and I've been very exposed to that lively culture, but having to experience that in person was just on another level, and being able to have a little glimpse into what carnival is like. We went to one of the houses that they put on for Brazilian carnival in the springtime, and it was just more 1,000 times more electric than what I could have expected.
Yeah, no, I can totally imagine. Breezy, why don't we hear what surprised you the most, given that you've traveled to multiple countries?
I think what surprised me the most is what didn't surprise me, actually. I think a lot of these countries ended up being a lot more like the U.S. and different places that I've traveled within the U.S. than I expected. Right before I came into Ross, I also traveled with the law school to India. And I know before then, you get a lot of warnings about different ways that you should dress, different interactions that you should be careful about having in different places, different foods you should avoid. And when I've been there, I just haven't had the same level of fear that I thought I would have. In Germany, for example, I went to Cologne, and the first thing I said was, this reminds me of the Bronx. Mm-hmm. And I was able to find the food I was looking for, and arguably found the best chopped cheese I've ever had in my entire life in Cologne, Germany, instead of New York, which it is a tough thing for me because I am definitely a New York lover.
Did they call it a chopped cheese there?
They called it a chopped cheese.
Oh, wow.
I have the videos and pictures. I'll show you.
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Diane, tell us a little bit about what surprised you the most. You were at Stockholm, correct?
Yeah. Actually, what surprised me was less so about the country and the culture. They're obviously a pretty westernized country, but it was actually the format of the time I was there, the classes. We were there for 2 weeks, and every day we had different speakers coming in, and they were legit speakers. We had someone who was a very successful investor, was the manager of the person who eventually founded Spotify. And then he also invested in, I think, Klarna. And then we had a healthcare person, a mental health specialist. We had a lot of different speakers, which is not typically the format of classes that we get at Ross. So really enjoyed just getting all the different perspectives and a pretty fast pace of the classes just because it was a different topic every day.
I know, Dominique, you mentioned about your motivation being around wanting to be a global leader. We'd love to hear from you ladies in the room. What were your thoughts around maybe having a similar perspective around kind of really growing and strengthening your global leadership?
Yeah, I can touch on that. So my background in general, educational wise, has always had an international or global edge. So I did international baccalaureate in high school, but I had never, pursued any level of international learning experiences outside of my own travels within a school environment. So I knew that was something that I wanted to seek out when coming to business school. So definitely wanted to have that international edge from the start. So that's why I pursued an international MTrack. But then also in the Ross community, there's so many students here from other countries. We have a very diverse class. So I know engaging with them in that way was also really important for me, and which is why also I'm studying abroad in Argentina. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, that was great hearing about, what were your reasons behind choosing each of your international experiences so far at Ross. What I'm curious to know more now is, how did your day-to-day look like? So just walk me through what it felt like on a day-to-day basis, and what did your international experience actually look like on the ground? Why don't we start with Abha?
Yeah, sure. So for me, it was very different to my life here in the US and before that in India. They used to start work at 8, and when they say start at 8, everyone is in the office. And, we were pretty jet lagged because of the time difference. But on Monday morning, we were there at 8. And it felt like I'm back in office. We went around just interviewing a lot of people because we were doing our primary research there. So it was really fun. But on that note, I have a really funny experience to share. We were jet lagged and tired and sleepy. Around 2 p.m. we thought, we'll get a break and we'll go for lunch and everything. And no one mentioned lunch till 5 p.m. And we were just so hungry and just talking to each other that, you are hungry too, right? You all are also feeling that, right? And then the day ended and we did not eat anything from 8 a.m. And then we asked our driver, how are we supposed to go about lunch? And he's like, they all bring their own lunches and they eat it at desk. So we did not even realize that there's no formal lunch break or anything. So the next day, I gathered the courage and I asked the founder, is it okay if we step out for lunch? And he's like, yeah, of course. You can do whatever. It's fine. You should just go and have lunch. Yeah. But that was so funny. I remember that Monday was so bad for me. I was just fighting.
Did you guys end up going to multiple restaurants within Nairobi?
Yeah. So we did explore some places nearby, but also we were very mindful of the time that we are spending. But my favorite thing was that they had a lot of Indian restaurants. So
Yeah.
I didn't even struggle to like find vegetarian food because I'm a vegetarian. We could just stop by at some Indian place, get some good pav bhaji, and that was good for me. So I had a great time.
Amazing. Yeah, I can completely resonate to that as well. Like Nairobi had such amazing restaurants. We definitely couldn't finish our list in 1 week when we planned for it. So I was super surprised. That was one of my surprise elements, actually. Let's move on to Dominique, and love to hear how did it look like for you, especially if you can talk through China. Curious about that.
Yes. So China probably was my most impactful experience. China was very organized, actually. So some days we came into the classroom in the morning and we had a lecture. Some days we had cultural experiences. So we did things like the Great Wall of China. We went to Xi'an. We saw the terracotta warriors. So just depending on the day, we might have lecture in the morning and in the evening, or we'll have a cultural experience in the morning or the evening. And we also visited different companies. So we had the opportunity to visit Tencent, which is like one of the largest companies in China. So our days were very flexible, but what that looked like the most was that there was opportunity to like engage with not just the staff and our program managers, but there was 31 of us from all over the world. So we had people from like Argentina, Australia, Canada, just different programs all over. And we discussed like our backgrounds that we came from, where we were going next, how did our schools do things. So there was just a lot of diversity in thought. And our program was a partnership with PKU, or Peking University, which is one of the like top 1 or 2 in China. And there were a lot of students who were of Chinese heritage who came from other countries to study there because it's so competitive if they were applying in countries. So that also taught me about like the culture. We were in 3 different cities, which was Beijing, Xi'an, and Shanghai. So overall, very diverse activities, diverse group of people, and lots of learning from different perspectives.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Now I'd like to move on to Dan to hear your experience on the grounds.
Yeah, actually similar to Dominique, we also had a pretty organized schedule, but less fast-paced than in Nairobi and probably Beijing and Shanghai. So we were in Stockholm, and we got an Airbnb with 2 other Rossers that were with me, and we were walking distance from the school. So we would wake up, we would slowly walk through this historic streets and get to the school. We would maybe get a pastry, a cardamom bun. Then we would have the speakers. We were also invited to go to visit a couple companies like Ericsson to talk about what 6G is going to look like. We went to visit Volvo, which I didn't know was a Swedish company, but to talk about their views on sustainability and innovation. And then in Sweden, they have this tradition called fika, which is basically some kind of like afternoon snack rest time. So then we would get another cardamom bun, and then, class would end. And then we were also with a group of MBA students, not just from Ross, but also part-timers and weekend MBAs from all over the US and other parts of the world as well. So some of us would go grab dinner, go to a museum, walk by the water. It was really nice.
We need to introduce fika at Ross now.
Yeah.
An afternoon snack I needed.
Yeah. No, I love countries that like have, obviously in Italy is a siesta. Like I love a good siesta. I need a rest period in the middle of my day. So one of the things we want to actually hear from you all is around the challenges. I think as much as it's exciting to travel to new places, there's obviously things to consider. So we'd like to talk about, what were some of the challenges you face, whether it's cultural differences, language barriers, unexpected obstacles. Let's just kind of hear about how you guys navigated that. So let's hear from Breezy.
Oh, okay. One of the biggest challenges, I think for me, is always, it happens in the US as well, is I'm a very picky eater. And I also follow a very specific diet. So I often find myself in situations where I cannot find food that I'm going to eat. And alternatively, I just starve. But yeah.
It does not sound fun.
It's not fun. It's not fun. But I've lucked out. I think I've been fortunate enough that within these trips, I've had groups of Rossers that are very understanding to these needs and these preferences. And so they've worked really hard. Like, for example, for my MAP trip, when we were in Ireland, my team, after I think it was a few days of my nibbling at stuff or just refusing to eat where we went, they offered me, okay, where do you want to go? We'll go absolutely anywhere, travel absolutely anywhere to get you some food, which is really nice of them. I've had that experience come up when I was in India. I was able to order separate from the group setting. Also, when I was in Germany, there were a few times that we chose menus that they knew that I could order food from or something that I would like there. So I feel like I try really hard to expand my palate, but because that doesn't happen very often, I also have this thing where I go search for chicken parm everywhere I go. The only place I haven't found it is Ireland. And funnily enough, we went to this like pub that looked like something from a movie from Frozen, very small, very tight. And I met a couple from Ireland, but they had spent the past 15 years in New York. And the first thing I said was, wonderful. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where can I find a New York chicken parm? The wife looks at me and she's like, absolutely nowhere. You're not going to find that. So, yeah, I guess to your question of challenges, it's going to be for me the food.
Janel, what about you? You know, we're talking about differences, but like, want to hear from your perspective, coming from a Jamaican heritage and being in Brazil, like I imagine there also being some similarities. So let's hear from you about differences, cultural barriers, but also like where are some of those similarities and overlaps?
I think similarities definitely is in like the warmthness of the culture. So that felt very familial. And also the climate. It was very, very warm. It was honestly the perfect temperature. So I felt, oh, wow, like I feel like I'm at home. But then in getting ready to speak to someone, I'm like, oh, I don't understand what you're saying. And I do speak Spanish. So then I was like, oh, like trying to pick up words here and there. And then surprisingly enough, I was able to speak with some of them in Spanish and they knew Spanish. So then we can converse that way. But definitely Google Translate was my best friend. And I think for me, language barriers are huge just because I feel like we connect so well, like even right now, like in speaking. And I value that so much. So having that that barrier of not being able to speak to them in Portuguese was hard for me, but also they managed it very well. Like whether we're at a cafe or something, we were able to speak in English or they had an English menu, or then I would, try to say, words here and there in Portuguese, and then they would appreciate my effort. But then they would repeat back in English, and I'm like, okay, so you know what I'm saying. No, yeah. So definitely the language barrier is a real thing.
Yeah, that always happens a lot when you go to some countries. You're assuming that they're not going to understand English, so you start trying to attempt, and it's always funny because they just watch you struggle, wait for you to get to the end of your sentence, and then completely respond in English.
Yeah. And then I think when it comes to just the corporate culture, I've realized I don't need to take everything so personally because at least that was the case in Kenya where the feedback was very direct and I took it so personally. And then my advisor had to remind me that that's just the way things are done there. It's not that serious. You can relax. So I think that's something I'll keep in mind going forward, that it's not always how I have perceived it to be. It can also just be that's how they do it there.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point to bring up. Anyone else has similar experiences in terms of in the office, corporate relations that were a little bit different than how you would do it here in the U.S.?
I think for me, when I went to Nairobi again, I could relate to the office culture very similar to India versus the US. The way they treated us, we were just a bunch of students, but I was working with Kenya Medical Supply Authority, the huge organization. So when we went into their office, they treated us like huge guests. They had lunch served. They brought in people to speak with us, had an entire conference room booked. So I felt like they really treated us like, okay, actual consultants who've come to help them. Was
very different to my experience. We thought of us as interns. He was just giving us ad hoc work and we had to sir, no, we cannot do this right now.
Yeah, so we had I think a different experience where it's we were treated as okay, a bunch of consultants and let's give them as much as info as we can. That was really nice.
No, definitely when I went to India on behalf of International Investment Fund, and all the places we visited, every single place offered coffee. And I honestly, with the time difference and jet lag, I took every single cup of coffee. But I just loved the snacks. There was always someone coming in asking, does anyone want water, coffee? So that is very different from in the U.S. I feel you just come in, bring in your own cup of coffee. No one's grabbing you coffee.
Yeah, I think that's very true. In fact, I did so much shopping. The tea leaves that I use today are the ones that I got from Kenya.
Yeah. Love it.
wrapping up this topic, now I'm excited to hear what was that highlight of your trip or your experience, and maybe if there was a moment that made you think, this is why I came to Ross. Was there something like that in any of your experiences? Why don't we start with Dominique?
I feel like I've had this moment several times over on my international experiences, but it all boils down to the people. So the people that you're doing the experience with, the people that you meet there, and then just everyone involved. You get to know individuals in a different way. You get to learn about their different experiences. You get to see them outside of like a very structured environment. You see like their compassion, their softness. And that reminds me like, that's why I'm here, like to connect with people, to gain experiences together. Cause I can make a joke now with you. You'll get it. And like, we'll be able to continue on. Like, so it makes the difficult things like easier. Yeah, I would say that has been like the highlight, but also like just gaining a different perspective. Sometimes you think that something might be one way and it's completely different, but just because our lived experiences are different.
To build on that, I think like that's such a great point because all three of my MAP teammates were not in my section. I had never spoken to them. So it was so wild that I had such a different perception of them. And then like being in Kenya with them for 1 week. And like I mentioned, we had so many ups and downs which we faced together. So that was amazing. We are the closest friends now. And I think apart from that, I have this weird infatuation with zebras. So I got to see a lot of them in Nairobi National Park. Believe me, I cried when I saw them. I was like, oh my God. Till now I knew they exist, but now I know they're real. Like I have seen them now.
Yeah. So. I don't know if, if I say this was my moment, if you guys are going to be like, how is it like the moment? Because I feel the safari was my best experience. Oh my God, I can't explain what it felt like to be there.
A very wholesome feeling.
It was amazing. So we ended up like squeezing in that 1 day of Masai Mara. Oh, the best.
Yeah. Did you do the game drive too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you able to see all 5?
We missed one.
Yeah.
We missed the rhino.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you saw the leopard?
We saw the leopard.
Yeah, I missed the
We saw
leopard.
lions.
Yeah.
We saw a pack of... So, unfortunately, we missed a hunt. But if we were, just maybe we started an hour back, we would have probably watched the hunt as well. So, we watched the entire scenario where the hunt was done and all the cubs and the lionesses are preying on that.
God.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool to see,
Yeah.
but sad.
Yeah. And the jeeps are all just around it. And we were
wow.
so close. It was mind-blowing, actually.
You have to show me the video later.
Yeah.
So before, we talk about the next question, I feel like one thing we haven't actually talked about was Sea Trek. And maybe for those who don't know, Sea Trek is, where NBA ones go to Colombia during spring break. So quick around the room on like what's some highlights from Sea Trek and just so our listeners can know what to expect.
You have to go on Sea Trek. There's no if, ands, but like you have to go at the parties that are thrown during the week. Parties are always fun, but just the decor and just how they gather everyone in these like really unique spaces. It's almost like you're attending a new wedding every single day.
Yeah. I agree.
Like just the way that they set the tables, the florals, the music, the bands that they bring out, the dancing, everyone, even people that you wouldn't expect to be dancing, they get everyone dancing out on the floor and you're dancing until the wee hours of the night. And it's the best way to bond with your classmates. It's a bender for sure, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. It's a marathon. You'd have the best time.
I totally agree. And just imagine, like, we were a class of, 200?
Yeah.
Like, when would we ever do that? Like, a class of 200 going together. And the best part was, you remember when we had an entire plane to ourselves, just Ross's?
Yeah.
That was just amazing. I cannot forget that moment.
Yeah, Sea Trek is definitely a must go to. So a lot of people have found something or they've gotten so tired of recruiting that they need the mental break. You get to meet people from outside of your section. Like when you go on M-Trek, you're split up into smaller groups. So you get to see like your friends and then you get to meet new people. It's just like, and then we just take over the whole city. We take over every restaurant. We take over every tour. It's just go blue everywhere. So it's an opportunity to like experience your classmates in a different way where everyone just wants to have a good time, meet one another and have great experiences.
I also think for the self-improvement side of the equation, I've had a lot of conversations with people at Ross since I've been here that have learned Spanish in the past or can read it or have family members, but they're not super conversational. I think it was a wonderful opportunity to practice your Spanish skills. I think very quickly was able to communicate with people, especially in Medellin, where they didn't really speak English at all. So you had to rely on what you knew and communicate in that way. So it was great practice.
And I think those who missed MTrek, so I had not done MTrek, so I definitely had such a big FOMO. And then like C-Trek was my opportunity, and I think I made the most of it, got to catch up with everyone, make new friends. It's an amazing experience.
Totally agree. I know there's so much contemplation, whether to go, whether to not go, spend so much. But like Janel said, go for it.
Yeah, you have to.
So let's zoom out a bit here. How did all of these different international experiences shape your MBA journey and your career outlook overall?
So I'm someone that's very excited about change and new experiences and meeting people. And these opportunities to travel recently have given me the opportunity to do that. When I was just in Germany, I had a classmate come up to me one night and say, "Breezy, you're thriving. I've never seen you this way." And I had to think about that and recognize that he's right. Like I do thrive in new circumstances, but it also like made me take a step back and think about how can I apply that to my everyday life, because I'm not always going to be able to travel, but I still want to be in a place, in a great headspace where I'm excited about every day, and people also can recognize that I'm thriving at home. So it made me appreciate the opportunities that we have here at Ross. I can start a business if I want to. I can learn how to write a business plan. I can work with professors and classmates to learn more about my entrepreneurial journey. I can connect with people to hear about their backgrounds and their experiences and how we can build and help each other. I think as far as my career outlook right now, I'm working on an independent study with my former MAP faculty advisor, where I'm looking into the modern publishing landscape as a way to work in how do I take my novel that I'm finishing up from the idea, from the pen to paper manuscript, to a published book that has the potential to sell to a nationwide audience. So I think that's what really these experiences have given me.
I love that.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I would say that my international experiences, it created more awareness, empathy, and perspective. There was one person from my Brazil MTrek who's from Taiwan. I didn't know where Taiwan was before. And since then, I've met so many people from Taiwan. It just really, that's probably been the culture that I've gotten to experience the most, and actually went to Taiwan before going to China. And it just gave me just this fresh perspective on life and so forth. Taiwan actually spoiled me because by the time I got to China, since everything in Taiwan was in Mandarin and English, by the time I got to China, I was like, what's going on here? So it just gave me that fresh perspective of okay, how can I see this from a different angle? And fresh perspective and more empathy and compassion for approaching situations. I guess the last thing I would add on to that is being in China, one of the classes they talked about was the current state of their economy. So I thought, we're going to get into some numbers, new businesses and so forth. And that conversation was actually all around population growth. And since the population growth has been stagnant, even with the removal of the one-child policy, they're not sure how they will continue to grow as an economy, because that's going to impact their GDP, their productivity, and what can they do to incentivize individuals to have babies and have them a bit earlier. So it even gave me that fresh perspective in regards to doing business in China or having employees that are in China, and how that is impacting the world, because we are in a declining population. So business, friends, food, joy, new experiences.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I totally echo that. And apart from that, I feel I want to become a management consultant, especially here in the US. So just having a fresh approach to the consulting project that we were doing in Kenya, where we had no context before, just instilled that confidence in me, because imposter syndrome here at B School is huge. So just this MAP project instilled so much of confidence, told me that I'm on the right steps, I can be a good leader, I can handle everything that's been thrown at me. So definitely that was one big takeaway for me, apart from the friends, the culture, the food, everything else.
Wonderful. So finally, what advice would you give to Ross students considering an international opportunity? It could be incoming students, current students. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say definitely take advantage of it, especially Ross is such a rich place for seizing international opportunities, whether it's M-Trek, whether it's C-Trek, which is a must, whether
You
it's
forgot
a
the
short...
J-Trek.
Oh, J-Trek as well. That happens. It's a trek to Japan that happens in May, right after classes end or right after your MAP ends. There's just such a broad, Rolodex of international opportunities for students to take advantage while at Ross. And whether it's some of the short-term exchanges or even more longer-term exchanges, definitely take advantage of them, because I think the skills that you learn there and the way that, kind of like what Breezy was saying, I think you almost shock yourself in how you're able to kind of flourish in these new environments. And I think it's all part of that personal development and being a better leader and a global leader. So it's only just for your own personal improvement.
Yeah, you learn a lot about yourself during that time as well. You figure out what you like, what you don't like, how do you deal with stressful situations as and when they come up. So definitely take advantage of this, because these opportunities, you won't get to do it outside school. So definitely go for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, imagining myself stepping into these different countries, just navigating through a different culture, you're just put in a new environment and you just have to navigate it. And the best part is you have people to do it with in the B school, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the best part.
I would say go outside your comfort zone. This is a safe place to learn. Before you're going anywhere, most likely you could find at least one classmate, probably 5 between both years, who's from that area, who lived in that area, or who has extensive knowledge. But this is just an opportunity to do something different. I'm Trinidadian. I grew up where I have a lot of Indian food. I grew up in a very Hispanic area. So I was exposed to those cultures, but going to China was completely different for me. I had to learn ni hao when I got to China, and thank you, which is xie xie, so that I'm being polite, but that was a completely eye-opening experience. And then, most of the times we travel, we now have service. So not being able to access certain sites, not even Google Maps. But doing that and doing it in an environment with classmates, with peers, with other people who want to learn and want to be there, that's where you're going to have the most growth from a business perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a perspective of gaining solid relationships. So stretch yourself. You're in a safe place to learn, and go that place that you probably wouldn't go on your own.
Yeah. Breezy, close us out.
Yeah, I think I agree with what everyone else has said. I know when I was younger, growing up, I had an opportunity to go on a charity trip with Operation Smile to Ireland. And my parents, out of fear of leaving the country, did not allow me to go on that trip. And I had thought about it. I carried that with me through all of the other opportunities that came up. And I also found myself, as I grew older, kind of being afraid to see new things and to experience stuff that I wasn't used to, go somewhere that speaks a language primarily that I don't know how to speak, without resources that maybe I'm used to here in the US. And it took me until right before I first came to law school, well after I entered adulthood, where I took my first international trip and realized that there is a whole world out there and it's not so scary, and it can actually be very helpful for helping you work through pretty much anything or just get a fun little experience out of it. So if you're thinking about it, just do it.
Now, before we close out, we need to ask you a really important hypothetical question. If Ross gave you a free round-trip ticket tomorrow, where would you go and why?
Are we talking one leg or can
That is a really great
Good
caveat.
question.
And can we also include the visas, please?
Let's say there was no visa restrictions.
No restrictions.
Okay.
And you can have one stop, one layover, because there's usually a layover.
Maybe pick a country, let's say. Let's make it easier for you guys. A country.
Okay. Well, that being said, I would choose to fly Icelandair. Specifically,
mine.
yeah. Well, specifically because Icelandair has an amazing promotion where you can include a stopover in wherever you're ultimately going. So that could just be your first stop, and you can, I think, go up to 7 days and visit all of these amazing spots, like see the Northern Lights. You can go to a hot springs. And as I've mentioned a couple times earlier, I'm currently working on finishing up my novel, and I think that those would be great places to write and get out of the stressors of the regular world, let everything flow away and put pen to paper. If you'd like to follow my journey, I would love to plug my Substack. It's Breezy Does It. I will be talking about my journey through the writing process, through the publishing process, as I also study for the bar, and link it back to I'm a blogger this semester for Poets and Quants, talking about my experiences as a JD and an MBA. My first article will also mention all of my international travel experiences. So
That is so
that.
awesome.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Dominique, where are you going?
I'm probably going somewhere in the Middle East. I haven't been to the Middle East yet. Maybe Persia, or I feel that I'm about to butcher this, but probably Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, somewhere in the Middle East. I think that's a culture I haven't had an opportunity to experience firsthand. So that's where I'll go. And a stopover. I don't know. Turkey. The Turkey Amtrak, I saw the pictures. I'm like, put me in a hot air balloon now. So I'll stop in Turkey.
And the airport is really cool. So.
Yes.
wait, but geographically, does this work out?
Doesn't matter. They're paying for it.
For me, it has to be Fiji. I just love the vibes. I just want to go there once. Hopefully with a layover in somewhere in Europe, maybe Paris. See that too while I'm there.
Beautiful. Oghoghosa, why don't we hear from you?
Wow. I think I would have to, honestly, Turkey was on my list of next places I wanted to go. So definitely there. I don't know geographically if this would work out, a stopover in Dubai, but that would be my ideal.
I like how the itineraries are coming along.
I think probably the Seychelles. I thought of doing the Seychelles for my honeymoon, but opted against it just to do other things. But I would probably do the Seychelles, flying Emirates business class.
Yeah.
Why not? With the stopover in Dubai, for sure.
Yeah.
Do some shopping and then head over to Seychelles for some relaxation.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I probably would want to do like Singapore Air business class. I heard that we value Emirates, but I heard there's higher level airlines.
I've heard that as well.
It's quite nice,
Amazing. What about you?
I was going to choose Iceland, but since it's already taken, I'll say Japan. I was hoping to do the J-Trek, but unfortunately the dates didn't plan out. So yeah, that's on top of my list.
You can join me.
Join us
Masa.
next year.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, join us in May coming.
The coming year.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, that sounds like a plan.
And then we have Masa from my map trip, and then he can help us plan out
it
the whole
out.
J-Trek. Yes,
along.
let's
Perfect.
do it.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you all so much for your insights. Such great stories. I'm sure our listeners are really taking this in and using it to really inform their decisions. So with that concludes our first episode of the season. Round of applause.
Business Beyond Usual is brought to you by the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Today's episode was produced by Sylvia, one of the executive producers of BBU, and the rest of us are Oghoghosa, Jasmin, and myself, Aishwarya, who you'll hear from this season. And special thanks to our studio producers, Jonah, Brockman, and Mads Henke.
Thanks for listening. Until next time, go blue. And this is Business Beyond Usual.
This episode is sponsored by the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Through our podcast, you can connect with the people and experiences that define the Ross way. Check out our other podcasts, such as Working for the Weekend, an exploration of the part-time MBA experience, Business and Society, a business podcast with award-winning Michigan Ross faculty, and Down to Business, an interview series with Ross alum in the C-suite, hosted by Dean Sharon Matusik. All podcasts can be found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.